Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Stacy. I'm a registered nurse. If you're new here, welcome in. If you're coming back, I'm so glad to have you. I've been gone for a couple of weeks dealing with a personal family death. As a hospice nurse, that's been an experience. I think I've talked about it from the standpoint of my grandmother, so I would like to talk about that from the standpoint of what that looks like for me today. If you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more. A couple weeks ago, my brother, who was 42, was in an accident, and he lost his life. As a hospice nurse, I have dealt with this tragedy many times. I have counseled many people at the bedside on life support. I have never personally experienced a family member on life support. And so it was a completely new experience for me, and I would like to share that with you from a patient standpoint for other nurses who may wonder. I will say that the people who were taking care of my brother did an excellent, amazing job at explaining things to us and giving compassionate care to my brother. My brother was very artistic, talented. He could write anything or play any music. He has four beautiful children who have been left behind, as well as his wife and his many siblings. We got the call on a Saturday that my brother had been in an accident, and we're told that he was being flighted to a bigger hospital, as I come from a small town. Now, I am thousands of miles away from my brother. I don't live in the same city that I grew up in anymore. And receiving that call was devastating, to say the least. I will say that my work family was very compassionate with me and made sure to pull together to cover for me so that I could take the time that I needed. My brother wanted to be an organ donor, and so he was. He chose to donate his organs and give life to others and make his life mean something to him. There's some things you may not know about organ donation that I did not know as a hospice nurse. So I think it would be beneficial to share about life support, end of life, and organ donation, because this is how my family was affected by my brother's death. As a nurse, we understand when a doctor or a medical person is telling us prognosis and outcomes and expected outcomes, but as a sister or a mom or an aunt or an uncle or a child or a wife, even though we know what that means, there's still this minute amount of hope that something could miraculously change. Being thousands of miles away, I didn't think that I would get to say goodbye to my brother, and because of the organ donation process, I was able to physically see my brother and say goodbye to him. When I arrived at the hospital, he was on life support. He was intubated and had IVs going to keep his vital signs maintained. And essentially the organ donation, the transplant people were just waiting for an official time of death. It was explained to us that my brother was likely dead on impact. He was not in a vehicle. He was riding a unicycle and was struck by a vehicle. And we were told that he likely was killed on impact. But I still needed to hear those explanations from medical staff and medical personnel and doctors. And I will say that they were very compassionate in the way that they explained things to me. And the people who handled my brother's organ donation transplant were very patient and allowed me the time to get from my state to my brother's state to come to his bedside. When I got there, as a hospice nurse, I saw all the signs that I see on other patients and knew that my brother was no longer in this body. Still, it was nice to see him physically, hold his hand, and say goodbye, even though my medical mind knew that my brother wasn't in there anymore. My heart still needed that chance to say goodbye. So the doctor finally came, they did their neurological testing, and they said that he was officially dead. and they gave us the time. What I did not know about organ donation is that they will often keep the person's body alive on machines longer. I think my brother, even though he was pronounced legally dead, was still hooked up to machines awaiting the people who were going to receive his organs. I apologize for saying so much, but it's just hard to talk about. My brother had chosen to be an organ donor and had discussed these things with his wife and was in the organ donation registry in the state that he lived in, that we grew up in. And he made very specific instructions about how he would like his organs to be given to others. He had a very set idea on how he wanted to make a difference. Some of the things that people said about my brother is that he was generous in life, and I will tell you that he was generous in death. Legally, a spouse is liable to make those decisions at the time that a person is on life support and deemed that they are no longer functionally alive. The spouse would have to give permission to honor those wishes. That was a very hard decision for my brother's wife, to allow them to take her husband's organs and take control of her husband for so many days after his death. They explained the process to us very compassionately and talked about my brother's organs in terms of gifts. I will say to you that the conversations that I had made me think about the conversations that I give, and things that I should have maybe been more conscientious of as a nurse. You know, as healthcare workers, when we're talking to other people in terms of life and death, we often say things that we think are going to make a person more comfortable, and it comes across awkward to a family member or a loved one, which I did not know until I was on the other side of the bed. And the neurologist was very matter of fact with us, which I appreciated. But the doctor, the house doctor, was very kind, very compassionate, and very soft with the delivery of his information, and yet very direct. And I appreciate the fact that he explained it to me, not knowing that I had any medical background, and gave me such a detailed account and apologized and gave sympathy and condolences to my family that was there. When they did deem that my brother was legally dead, the people with the transplant then did assume possession of my brother's body for donation. I did not know that this was not an immediate process. You know, I think I always thought they went for organ donation and it happened the same day and everything was done, but it's quite a process. It's quite an interesting process that I would like to learn more about. I believe they had my brother's body for a week after he was declared legally dead. And they did share with his wife, and his wife shared with us, the people who received my brother's organs, gifts. I think when she was explaining to me about the gifts that my brother was giving, that she was being compassionate and not calling it what it was. But it seemed to hit me wrong when they said gifts to me about my brother, because he was my brother. He was my brother. And thinking in him in terms of gifts for other people was a very crude and harsh for me, as a nurse even. So I have really, really struggled with getting back to work and getting back to life and doing what I do. I am a hospice nurse. I give these educations. I go to deaths and pronounce deaths. But I didn't know how I was going to feel after I lost my brother. So his organs did go to a teenage girl, a woman, and a couple of men. And I think my brother would have been really happy with the way that turned out. I don't know how I would feel about that for a loved one. I think if you're in that situation and you're a wife, this is my spiel of saying that it's really important as family members that you have advance directives, that everybody in your family is on the same page, that you all know what the person who is not able to speak for themselves anymore is saying. My brother had a really good relationship with his family, and he had a really strong love for his family and for God, and he was always actively seeking ways to better himself and seek God. And I believe that he intentionally signed up for organ donation, and as hard as that is to accept, I think it's amazing as a program. I've seen good things and bad things from my side of the table, but as far as the experience with my brother, it was eye-opening and it was difficult. And if I was ever a nurse for someone and I didn't say things compassionately, I deeply apologize for that, because it's a really hard piece of information to accept even when you're a medical person. And I really have great respect for the nurses in the ICU that were tending to my brother's care, knowing that he wasn't there anymore, still giving him compassionate care. And I can't say enough nice about that experience. My local hometown was quick to get him to a bigger hospital that could handle his needs and address these things. I suppose we wondered why they kept him on life support, knowing that he probably died on impact, but he was an organ donor and that was his wish. And so I would guess that that factored into things too. I think organ donation is really special. It would take a really special person to do it and to give life to others. And it would take a really special family member to be able to make that decision. I think it was really important for us to hear that he probably had died on impact. They did do tests to verify that and make sure that that was correct, because you always have that little piece of hope in the back of your mind when it's your loved one. And so I feel like everything was handled above bar, professionally and compassionately for my brother. And so I would just say thank you to St. Louis University Hospital. And I can't think of the name of the transplant people because I keep wiping it out of my brain, but I thank them for giving my brother's family such compassionate care during my brother's loss and sharing the lives that he impacted with his death. Just to know that if you sign up to be an organ donor, they can test you to see what organs would be compatible with people who are waiting for organs. And also, if they cannot use your organs, they will use other parts of you if necessary, your tissues, your muscles, your tendons, things of that nature. So if you truly want to give the gift of life to somebody, look into that. Sign up with your local organ donation. Usually that's something that you can do at the driver's license station when you're getting your driver's license. I know in the state that I came from, it is something that you did when you renewed your driver's license. And my brother was able to sign up for that on his own and communicate that to his wife. So I'm really thankful that I had the opportunity to see my brother, say goodbye, and understand how organ donation works in the state of Missouri. But I think I need to learn more about how it works in terms of other states as well. I think that this was an eye-opening, educating experience for me as a nurse to lose someone unexpectedly. We, as nurses working in hospice, we know that life is short and life is precious and life ends. We know this as hospice nurses. We know that life comes to end, and we know about this journey and about this cycle, and we teach others about it. And if you've never experienced something like this, I pray that you never do. But if you do, just know you're not alone out there. I'm sure that there's people you can reach out to, support groups, to talk about your experiences, to talk about your feelings, to grieve that loss together. I encourage that you do that. I have an amazing big family, and we've all been able to talk about it and give support to one another about it. And based upon your religious or cultural beliefs, I believe my brother, I will see him again someday. So that's very comforting, that even though he left this earth and he's not with us physically, I do believe that I will one day again see my brother healthy and living in another place. So I think it's really important that you talk about these things with your family members. Also, that you are compassionate when you're giving this information as a nurse. From a hospice standpoint, where we come into play with organ donation usually would be if a person was not able to donate organs and then they still needed compassionate care at end of life. Generally, my experience has been from the hospice side of things in a GIP setting where a person is compassionately extubated and they receive comfort medications and things to keep them comfortable through their end of their life. When organ donation comes into play, they have a certain window of time that a person would need to pass in order to utilize those organs. And sometimes the extubation, a person that's younger, or sometimes people don't die in the window that they can utilize their organs. And so they do have to be placed then on hospice in a GIP situation, which is general inpatient, where they are getting IV medication management to manage those symptoms that come with end of life sometimes, especially when you're talking about brain injuries. And, I've seen things like drug overdose, stroke, brain bleeds. The brain just isn't working for me today, but I've seen many different instances where a person needed GIP and was on life support and was at that point in their life where their life was not viable anymore without the machine. I think it's a very hard process to explain to somebody that the machine is doing the work for the patient. I think it's very important that we allow patients to get that testing to show them that they're not, I think pulling the plug is such a terrible word, that they're not pulling the plug, that they're not ending their loved one's life, that their loved one is no longer with us, and that the machines are impeding the natural process that happens with death. I think at any age you should probably, I've talked about this before, talk about your wishes, how your burial would look, what your cultural beliefs are, what your religious beliefs are. I think it should be plain in writing so that your family has no dispute if there ever comes a time whenever you cannot speak for yourself anymore. And it's also important to share that with our families when we're doing education at the bedside about the importance of advance directives and the importance of making those needs known before we come to a point where a person is not able to make those needs known anymore. I think in this case, it's very clear that my brother wanted to bless somebody else with the gift of life. And I am very thankful that he was able to do that. And I hope that those people live a long time. I know my brother's heart is beating on in somebody else. And I hope that anything that came from him brings a blessing to somebody's life. I can't say enough about St. Louis University Hospital and the way that they handled my brother's case. So I think that that's enough of that. Were there ever any time you lost a loved one? Did you experience organ donation? Did you experience life support and extubation? Have you experienced that as a nurse, giving that communication to someone about end of life and coming off of life support? How did you handle those things? How did you have those tough conversations? As a family member, how did you receive those conversations if you've experienced that? I would love to hear about it in the comments and talk about it more. And if you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more so that we can talk more about nursing, life, death, and everything in between. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.